Thank you, David, for inviting me for this project, the Tribes Project, and about my stories. Let's say it's been 13 years since I left New York, and I'm back here, which feels like home. Or I guess it was home for 5 years for me, since 2003, 2008, that I stayed and lived here in New York. And I'm here because of this strange situation that is happening around the world with COVID-19, and considering that in Colombia we do not have, I guess, a quick access to vaccines, so all of a sudden what I thought it was going to be the best was to come and get vaccinated here. So this is how I ended up here in New York again. But the whole last year, it has made me realize a lot of things that have changed in my life. And I guess that's what I'm going to talk about my stories. And let's say I moved to a new apartment in early 2020, and it was like I was with my husband at that time, and we were starting to create this new life. We got into this investment and remodeling, and it had been like a whole big project for us. And then we moved early in 2020, and all of a sudden, we're just finishing up. I'm start unpacking, and then we are locked down with the extreme quarantines. And 2 weeks later, in this situation, my husband says he's no longer happy in our marriage and that he doesn't want to continue. Plus, he wants to be with someone else. So it was shocking. I had no clue about any of this. And on top of that, I knew that he was kind of like neurotic at that time, but I wasn't sure what it was. So it was just a shock, but then I realized we couldn't move. Since there were strict quarantines and we were living in this building, the only thing that I came up with, which I thought it was for my, I guess, mental health, was to move to the first floor where we had our design studio. So that's where I ended up living for over more than 6 months until we were able to move, or I was able to get an apartment and move away from that building and start a new life. This, came with all of the other things that we all around the world had with the COVID and extreme quarantines. Then we had localized quarantines around the neighborhood. So that's why I ended up not being able to move from one neighborhood to another one, because one was locked down when the other one was open. And then when I was able to move, the other one shut down. So it was just like a little bit of like a process of just being patient and trying to understand why life was just moving these little keys and that I just didn't know what to do. And what I was saying yesterday I just consider that life is just like a checkerboard with the pieces, that life is just moves one piece from one place to another, and you just don't know why is that movement happening. But there are reasons, and I guess at that time I just didn't understand anything, and I just thought, okay, the world went just upside down, and I'm like in a huge roller coaster, but I just don't understand anything. Now I feel that over time I can see myself and see things that I didn't realize that were happening, and feel more comfortable about me, about being by myself and being happy by myself, which is something that I've been discovering, and that's good. I'm usually a person that I like to organize myself and have everything like written down in a calendar, like all things organized. And last year is just like it was not written anywhere. And without a script, that makes you change completely the way you have to react in life, which I think it was good for me because it's not something like I have to force myself to, like things have to be in this way or this other, but about just let it go. And I think that's what I have learned so far in this last year. And I feel like I'm not sure how it's going to evolve in terms of the jobs lately, because of course the job market, I mean, reduced. I have a design studio with a really good friend, and she's a partner, and my ex-husband. And of course, the three of us got into really tense situations because they both, my ex-husband and my friend, also got into really let's say like fights because they don't get along sometimes the way they should or the way they want, or they are sometimes they even look alike or they act alike because they are hard to speak up, and they, if one of them gets upset at the other, they don't really talk to each other, so that makes it difficult. And last year didn't help at all. So now with COVID and all of us working all of a sudden at our homes makes it some way easier that we can work together, but at the same time harder because we are not being able to make up with all the relationships that had been somehow hurt. But if before, let's say a year ago, I wanted to have some sort of like a manual that, okay, what should we do? Now we should do this or that. Now I'm like, let's let it go with the flow and see how we can evolve. We do start, I mean, like we are starting to get more jobs now. We do have to learn how to always change and understand the things that are happening and new technologies and new things that are requiring our clients. So I guess with COVID and people moving more digitally, we have to also understand that we need to learn and move more digitally. And it's, again, go with the flow. It's not about just being like relaxed, but it's more about more of understanding that life is teaching you things, and it's just about being aware and with your eyes open of what you need to learn from that. So I guess I'm comfortable in terms of that. I feel that we do have a future with the company, with the design studio, and I don't know how the dynamics of our partners, I mean the three of us, plus the designers that we work with, are going to happen in the future. And I mean in the near future or in 2 or 3 years, I have no clue. But now I'm not stressed out of trying to figure it out right now. I think it's easier for the mental health for everyone not to try to force things. So I think it will work. I don't know how, but it will work. Coming back here is symbolically good to be by myself. It's like a closure. It's something that I'm like just finishing up and closing that chapter, which I think it's good. And it's good to be in this familiar place and this, what I did call home for a few years. But just enjoying it in a different way. Now I'm revisiting friends and seeing the things that I used to like here. So it has been a good time. I think it's just like a process of healing somehow, but in a good way. It has been a good, happy closure, and plus I was able to get the vaccine, which made me more comfortable in this weird time. Of course, I mean, the vaccination is a problem because The reason why many Latin Americans are coming to the States is because our countries are not being able to have processes organized enough, or like they didn't even bought the vaccines or envision it with time enough that we will be able to get vaccinated on time. I mean, and of course, in many countries, the levels have risen so much, and the intensive care units have been crazy. So it gets a lot of stress. This comes up with the question of, well, I guess I'm privileged enough to be able to come to the States because I know the city, at least New York. I know how to move around, and I'm able to speak in English, even to do the things. Of course, many people here, I mean, even they don't have to speak English to be able to live here. But for me, I feel that I'm privileged enough to be able to come. Although I'm also aware that if I can have a space back in Colombia that someone else is getting my vaccine faster, since I'm already getting a vaccine, that is going to be helpful as well, because the country is not going to be able to come as fast as everyone in the world needs to. And besides that, even though the reason for coming to New York was the vaccine, I've been enjoying New York as well. I've been trying to get as much as I can in a few just very short period of days, but seeing friends and going to the museums, and just pretty much just enjoying what I used to enjoy when I was here, living in New York. It's a short story.